In part one of the Borders Edge to Edge tutorial, I showed you how to create a template that you can use on your quilt project on your frame. Now in part two, I'm going to show you how to use that template and actually place those patterns on the quilt. Right, let's get started. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I am going to right click, unlock these, touch this one, right click, unlock, and touch this one, right click, unlock. All right, because this is what I'm worried about right now. I'm going to sew these out. I'm also going to come in here and touch my edge to edge, right click, lock. All right, now I don't need this Z-square anymore, so I'm going to right click, I'm going to come to Group Manager, and I'm going to locate my Z-square. All right, so I'm going to locate this one right here, locked, queued and unlocked, and this one, locked, queued and unlocked, and you can see they both turn green, so I'm going to X out. Now I'm going to remove this one because I no longer need it. It was just a template. All right, so now I'm going to delete that. Now I am going to come to my push pin icon on my favorites bar, and I'm going to make sure that connect while placing is selected. I will be using my mouse. You are going to be using your mock screen on your lightning stitch, your left handle white click button to place push pins along the seam line in between the two borders. So I'm going to use my mouse because I don't have an actual project right now. But again, you're using your left handle white button to place push pins. And I'm going to go right along my boundary here, or my border one, okay? And I can put as many points as I want, all right? And I'm coming right down the actual seam line of those two borders, putting as many seam lines as push pins as I want along that seam line, all right? And this is my actual seam line. Come up the sides, come across the top. And I don't need to worry too much about the top or the sides because when I baste it on, I know that's a straight line, okay? And I know that this is pretty straight because I've already basted them. All right, I don't need these push pins. I only need the line that was created. So I'm going to say done, and you would say that on the upper right-hand corner of your mock screen. Excuse me, and remove all. So now I only have the line that was created. Come back to transform, and the first one I'm going to touch is my upper left-hand corner, and I can pull this up. Remember, I want to have a little bit of space between the sides and the top because I don't want to get into my binding. And then I'm going to tweak these to fit exactly how I want them to. All right, I could probably bring this one down a little bit, make it a little bit smaller, maybe pull it up just a little. This one I can pull down. But then right here, you can see that this is a little bit close. So I'm going to come to the morph tool, and I'm actually going to tweak it up a little bit. All right, I like to get really close to my seam line or my ditch line. So I'm going to come back to the transform tool, pull it down, morph tool, pull it back up to fit the way that I think it needs to fit. And I do that all the way along as I use both my morph tool and my transform tool to do this. Okay, and I just keep playing with this till I like what it looks like all the way across the quilt, up. This one needs to come quite a bit up, so I'm going to be very careful and just pull up with my morph handles. All right, pull that up. This looks good. I need to pull this one over a little bit, pull this up, pull this one this way just a smidge. And see, I'm just tweaking this to fit within my border or my ditch the way that I want it to. All right, pull that one. That one looks pretty good, yay. And this is my next corner. I'm going to come to the transform tool, and I'm going to pull it up and pull it out. And I'm going to finesse this any way that I want, okay? I don't need to worry too much about this border right here, the seam line, because when this comes around the corner and I sew down my sides, this will be taken into consideration. All right, now remember I told you that I don't sew down my sides. I do not junk my borders. What I'm going to do is I'm going to baste down the sides as I advance my quilt, all right? And then when I'm done, I'm going to turn my quilt and put it back on the leaders and sew this row out as one and this out as one, but I'll show you what that looks like at the very end of this tutorial. I'm ready to sew this out, but I want to connect these, okay? Because you can see they're all different. So I'm going to come, and I'll magnify my screen a bit so you can see. This little line here, it's a little bit still too much for me. I don't want that much of a line, so I'm going to touch this one again, come back to the morph tool, and maybe just help it just a little, okay? All right, okay. And now I'm going to come to the group tool, and I'm going to make sure link is selected. Oops. I need to cancel that first. I need to touch the corner, not this first repeat. Link. And what's going to happen now is I'm going to draw a line between here and here. All right. There you go. That's less than a stitch, actually. Nobody's going to see that. If I think this is too much, I'm going to accept that, come back to the morph tool, touch this one, and pull it up. And just help a little bit. Come back to the group tool, link. Oops, I got to do that again. I do that every time. Link, touch, and it will draw a line in between each one of these, okay? And I'm just watching what I'm doing. I could detach, but that's going to pull the two ends together, and I would rather have the line drawn. And like I said, it's less than a stitch, so nobody will notice that. And I am going to accept that one as well. Accept, come back to transform, full view. And now you can see I am ready to sew this top border out, and I'm going to let it sew. All right. So now I'm going to DQ that, so that's what it looks like. I'm now going to come into my edge to edge, because I can actually do 2 repeats of this edge to edge without advancing my quilt. So I'm going to touch my edge to edge. All right. And what that is it just told you that I grabbed that Z square that I had left. So I'll pull it out. See this Z square? The Z square is reading before my edge to edge. So I'm going to touch my Z square, right click, and I'm going to delete it now. Okay? And now I have access to my actual edge to edge. Touch it, right click, unlock. All right. Touch it, right click, ungroup. So now I have individual rows of my edge to edge. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing with my push pins that I did with my top border. I'm going to come to my push pin, and I will be using my mouse. You again are going to be using your left handle white button on your handle, creating your push pins between the inside of the quilt and that first border on your stop border. And I'm going to come down here and grab as many as I can get from the back bar all the way up. Okay, following the ditch line of that border. There you go. And I'm just clicking as many points as I want using that left handle white click button. Okay, and I'm just coming clear across here, grabbing it, coming all the way down. Again, pushing as many points as I want. All right, there it is. And I can say done. And you would be using the right upper right corner of your mock screen to do that on your sew head. I don't need the push pins. I only need the line it created. Remove all. So there's my line. I'm going to come to my first row. I'm going to actually come back to transform. Come to my first row. Touch it. There it is. And I'm going to pull it up with my handles on my transform. There it is. And I'm pulling them out to meet. But now I'm going to right click, ungroup, because I want all these starts and stops, and I want to be able to touch this one, come to my morph tool, and tweak this. So I can bring it down, I can bring it in, I can bring it whatever I want. I can make sure that this touches right in my ditch, and I can do that all the way across, okay? Because I want a little bit of space between the ditch and my pattern, but I don't need a lot, but I'm just tweaking these to fit exactly how I want them to, depending on how good my customer pieced their border. All right, I like what that looks like. Okay, and this side here, it's a little too close, so I'm going to pull it in. And again, I'm going to make sure that that touches. All right, come back to transform. Right, I'm going to touch the first one, come to group, link, and I'm going to link all of these. Oh, there we go. Now I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to come back to transform, and I'm going to do the same thing here, only this time I don't need to ungroup these rows because I'm only doing the sides. So I'm going to touch this, use my grab handles. Okay, magnify my screen just a bit. Use the morph tool if I have to and make sure that this comes right to my ditch. All right, there it is. I'm going to come to full view, and now I'm going to magnify my screen, come back to the transform tool, pull it out. Okay, come back to the morph, pull it in just a little bit, whatever I need to do to make this fit. Okay, pull it out to meet my line. All right, come back to the transform tool, and I am now ready to sew this row and this row. I'm going to let it sew all the way across and stop. Then I'm going to tie off, and I'm going to make sure that I've got my threads, whatever I need to do. Then I'm going to tell it to continue, and the machine head will move down here. I'm going to manually tie off my threads, do whatever I need to do, and now it's going to sew back. All right? Then I'm going to advance my quilt, and I'm going to do the same exact thing that I did with these borders and this part of the edge to edge down here. All right? When I'm all done, I'm going to take the quilt off of my machine, and I'm going to trim the side border here and this border here ready for binding. I'm going to trim it right off. Then I'm going to bring my ruler right here on this seam line, and I'm going to come out here about 3 inches farther than the actual quilt, and I'm going to trim it backing and batting with 3 inches of extra on the sides, on both sides. All right? And when I do that, I'm going to reattach it to my leaders, and this is what it's going to look like. All right, I'm going to come to full view. And now this is my reference point right here, and I am going to come around with my push pins, and I'm going to create this push pin line right here using all of my push pins all the way around, okay, on that corner border that I've already sewn. And then I'm going to bring this right here, and I'm going to make it meet just like what we did before. Right, do the same on both sides. This was my push pin line that I created. And I'm ready to sew this out as one row instead of having all of these starts and stops, all right, within my project. So this is how I use a template to create a custom or semi-custom edge-to-edge border pattern. I hope it helps. Let me know if it doesn't.